So welcome to our session number 17. And today we are going to talk about Amazon Elastic Cage and AWS security, and followed by AWS best practices. Going to agenda slide. So today we are going to talk about what is Elastic Cage and what are the type of Elastic Cage we have and why we have to go with Elastic Cage. And the second one, we are going to talk about security on AWS. We are going to talk in detail how the AWS is managing the security in their perspective. And finally, we are going to talk about AWS architecture best practices. That means how you have to define your applications using the best architecture perspective. These are the agenda items. Okay. Going to the next slide. So this slide we are going to talk about overview on Amazon Elastic Cage. Before explaining this slide, sometimes ago, if you are hitting a web page, it will take some time to load. Okay. Even in 2007, 2008, those periods, if you are typing Amazon.com and you are searching a product, it will take some time to fetch that product and display. So what will happen? This will absolute frustrate customer because the website is very slow and they are not able to view their items immediately, and they have to wait a certain time, for example 30 seconds or 1 minute, like that. So eventually what will happen for Amazon, the sales drop out significantly due to this slow process. And Amazon did significant analysis for that, why the sales is reducing day by day kind of thing. Then they understand that whatever customers are hitting their website, and whenever they are searching the product, it directly going to that database and searching the result and giving back to the customer. For that, it's taking some time. By that time, sometimes the website is timeout. So the customer, again, they have to refresh it, and again they have to search the items, like that. So for that, they have introduced a new concept called Elastic Cage. That means every time a customer is trying to search the product, it will not always needs to be go to the database. And first time it will goes to the database, and after that it will cache into that memory, so that next time any customer will search their product, it will not hit the database. Whenever it is hitting the database, the performance issues are arising. So that's why they brought this concept. So whenever the customer is entering any product details, then submitting enter key or click, what will happen? First, it will search in the Elastic Cage in that memory if any that query result available. If it is yes, then it's fetching from that Elastic Cage and display the result into that customer browser. Rather than again, it's going to the database and search over there and come back, like that. So this will give significant amount of time in terms of retrieval time, and customer need not wait so much of time to get their result. That means a product. So that's the purpose we have Elastic Cache. So I think you are able to understand why we are using Elastic Cache now. Okay. So Amazon Elastic Cache is one of the web service that you already know. Okay. Yeah. If you go to your user ID and password in aws.amazon.com, you are able to see Amazon Elastic Cache is also one of the service like S3, EC2, and VPC, like that. And it is very simplified to set up and manage, distribute in-memory caching environments. Okay. So this service makes it easy and cost effective because it is going to be, it is not always touching the database. So that's the reason. And it's a high performance and a scalable caching solution for your cloud application. So most of the AWS services are scalable. So like that, Elastic Cache also is scalable. And caching frequently used data in one of the most important performance optimization. So whenever an architect feels that his application is very slow, so they have to implement Elastic Cache so that the performance will be optimized well in their application. Compared to retrieving data from an in-memory cache, querying a database is an expensive operation. That means if you are searching in that memory cache, it is easy. But if you are querying to the database, it is very expensive in terms of cost perspective, in terms of time perspective. So that's the reason we are introducing this concept. The service improves the performance of web application by retrieving information from managed in-memory cache instead of relying entirely on the slower disk-based databases. Even if you are moving your database, for example, DynamoDB into IOPS, still the performance will be lag when you are trying to hit the database. Okay, instead, if you are going with Elastic Edge, so the service will be improved. So that's the reason most of the architects, they are preferred to go with Elastic Edge. And you can use Elastic Edge in your application to speed the deployment cache clusters and reduce the administration required for a distributed cache environment. Okay. And when querying the app server, first time, as I said, it will check the cache first. If the record data is available in that cache, then it will retrieve from that cache and display to the web browser. If not, it will hit the database, and uh, the database records will be fetched from the DynamoDB or whatever the database you are using in your application. Okay. Then it will write into that cache. Then again, it will come back to your browser. So this will reduce the cycle time to touch the database very often. So this about Elastic Edge, and we'll move forward next slide. Here we are going to talk about two types of Elastic Edge engines we have. One is Memcache and Redis. At the high level, Memcache and Redis may seem similar, but they have different type of use cases they are supporting. So that what each that is caching engine is supporting, that we are going to see in the next slide, so that you are able to understand when you have to use Memcache and when you have to use Redis. And the Memcache perspective, it provides a simple interface that allows you to write and read objects into memory, key and values data stores. Okay. For example, a high performance distributed memory object caching system intended for use in speeding up dynamic web applications. So that type we can use for Memcache. And Redis, uh, it supports the persisting in-memory data onto the disk. Okay, that means it allows the create snapshot that backup your data and then recover or replicate from the backups. It's typically, if you are going for the EBS type, then you can use the Redis type. And in-memory data structure stored used as a database, and a cache and a message broker. Elastic Cache for Redis offers multi-availability zone with auto failover and enhanced robustness. So that's the reason it's a very famous in the Redis. We are avoiding a failover on this Redis. So this about Memcache and Redis. And next slide, you are going to see the scenarios where you are going to use and what it supports Memcache and what Redis functionality will support. Okay, if you want to go for a millisecond latency, then you can go with either one. And developer case of use, you can go anything. But when you want to use the advanced data structure, so that time Redis only support. So you have to use appropriate Memcache. Instead of Memcache, you have to use Redis. And if you want to run multiple threads on your application, so kind of multi-thread architecture, then you have to go with the Memcache. But other than that, if you want to go for replication, transaction, publishers, subscriber model, like SNS, and any scripting you want to write, and geospatial support, anything you have to use in your application, then you have to go with Redis. So in highly always Redis is advisable than Memcache because it's offers more functionality, except that multi-thread architecture. So that multi-thread architecture also you can achieve in advanced data structure kind of thing. So this is all about an overview between Memcache and Redis. Hope you may have some question. I will talk at the end. And here we are talking about security. There are 5 key security point we have to understand. One is the data protection. And before explaining on the security perspective, how many questions you will get on this AWS security? You will get almost 0 questions most of the time. So why I'm including this slide for your knowledge purpose. Okay, and some interviews they may ask about this one. Okay, so just to going back to this uh, elastic cage, how many questions you will get? You will get minimum 2 questions. Uh, and the elastic cage will also combine with some other scenarios. So I would say 2 to 3 questions you will get on our examination. And in your job interview, definitely you will have 1 or 2 questions related with elastic cage. Okay, so feel free. You can, if you want to relax, you can relax while I'm explaining this question, this slide. But if you want to hear, up to you. Okay. So data protection perspective, AWS provides service that help you protect your data, accounts and workloads from unauthorized access. You know, they're implementing IAM, right? So that we are going to talk about next paragraph. And but before that, you also know that Cognito, that also one of the kind of identity and access management thing. For example, if you want to use your feed from Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or anywhere you want to gather all the information, and you want to access the logs in your company perspective. So that time you can go with Cognito, but IAM also support such things called as IAM Federation. But at this moment we are talking about data protection. So AWS provide well secured data protection policy. So we never need to worry about security on AWS. And identity access management, as I said, AWS Identity Service enables you to securely manage identity. That means correct user accessing correct resources and with the correct permissions. So with AWS, you have identify service for your workforce and customer facing application to get started quickly and manage access to your workloads and applications. So you can set up your roles and the groups and based on your needs. So IAM is a very popular tool in AWS. You already know that. And infrastructure protection, whenever you are sending data to the AWS, that means in transit or in or at rest. So both the times it will be AWS ensure that your data is well secured. For example, you can filter web requests based on IP addresses, HTTP headers, kind of thing. So it will be very well protected infrastructure. And the threat protection, continuous monitoring, always you know that you are able to use CloudWatch and CloudTrail. Both we can use to monitor. CloudWatch monitor what's going on in the AWS as well as your applications. Both it will monitor. But CloudTrail, you know that it's only monitor AWS related services. For example, how S3 is functioning and EC2 is functioning, kind of thing. So both are two different things, two different purpose. And complaints and data privacy, AWS gives you a comprehensive view of your compliance status and continuous monitors your environment using automated complaints check based on AWS best practice and industry standard your organization follows. So already last week we discussed there are several complaints and they have several certifications achieved from the third party so that it is well secured. Okay, move to the next slide. You are able to see how the security, identity, and complaint services worked in AWS. So I instead of starting left hand side, I'm starting with the right hand side. First, they are validating authentication. So as I said, Amazon Cognito or Amazon Single Sign-On or directory services. Okay, so either one or IAM you can use for authenticating a user. Then based on that, you can use IAM and AWS RAM or AWS organization you can use for authorization. So these are the two top level components. Then we have visibility and protected source. So there are several options we have to protect our AWS services and enforcement perspective. We have several services to monitor. For example, Amazon Inspector. Sometimes ago I have posted in concept of the day, and I think you are able to know that. You are able to understand that one. And Amazon Machi, who it is a machine learning language to support S3 logs kind of thing. And where, for example, in Nairobi or Kenya or some African countries, they typically trying to attack servers in United States. So such scenarios, AWS WAF will help you to stop such type of IP address which access it from non approved countries, and sealed also type of security enforcement. So this about AWS security. You will not get any questions from this slide, but still it's very good to know what is the security and how it works. And moving to the next slide, architecture best practices. Um, okay, whenever you are designing your application, so you have to consider these are the best practices so that your application will be always run, and there will be no availability or durability issue, so that even any number of users hit your website, so it will not give any issues or any errors. So this about best practices slide. um, you may get one question rarely, uh, but it is very important for your entry point of view. So that's why we have included this slide over here. And you know that um, the design for failure, and nothing will fail. That means if you are using a single server fails, uh, in your application you are using only one web server, only one database server, and only one availability zone, then uh, the system will fail, right? If a single web server fails, still your application fail. A single database fails, your system will fail. And you have hosted your application only one availability zone. If that fails, and your system fails, right? So these are the failure categories. But what you have to do? Okay, you have to go with the multi availability zone deployment, and you have to use multi database, for example Aurora or DynamoDB kind of thing. You have to use, so that even it is a one database will be failure, by default it will be replicated to other region, so you are able to get a copy of the database. And you have to go with multiple web server thing, so that one it will be fail, and you are able to fetch the record from or fetch the application from other web servers from the other region or availability. So you have to work accordingly. And you have to understand there are two types of elasticity. So you must implement elasticity for better application, better architecture. And one is scaling vertical and scaling horizontally. Vertical scaling takes place through increase in the specification of an individual resources. For example, uh, if you are using your 30 GB hard drive, and 6 GB, sorry, 8 GB RAM, and some faster CPUs. Okay, um, we never know, right? So when you need more, so configure for higher, so that based on the utilization it will be charged. Because of your configuring high, that is not the meaning it's always charged like that. Okay, and scaling horizontally. Horizontal scaling takes place through an increase the number of resources. For example, adding more hard drives to your storage array, or adding more servers to the support on application. I think you are able to understand difference between scaling vertically and scaling horizontally. Okay. If not, let me know at the end. I will explain you. And you have to leverage the storage options. So we cannot use same storage for all the applications. It differ from application to application. So you have to select the correct storage to the right application. Okay. So you have several storage options, right? Like EBS and S3 kind of thing, right? So you have to use accordingly which one is suitable for you. But next slide will give more information on that. So you may confuse which scenario you have to use on what, but this slide will help you that one. For example, you want to use object-oriented storage, then you have to go with Amazon S3. Uh, if you want to use say a long-term backup, and archiving thing, then you have to go with Glacier. And you require content delivery network to deliver the contents fast to the into the edge location. That time you have to go with CloudFront. And DynamoDB you have to use when you want to use NoSQL, and the EBS you can use whenever you are using EC2 instances, and RDS when you want to go with multi-availability zone deployment kind of thing. That time you have to use RDS. And if you are running data warehousing applications, then you have to go with Redshift. And Elastic Edge, just now we discussed. So if you want to go with um, in-memory cache or Redis, that time you no need to touch the database. That time you have to go with the Elastic Edge. And EFS, if you want a flexible uh, storage with EC2 instances, that time you have to go with the EFS. Okay, there are significant difference between S3, EBS, and EFS. We will revisit that one later. And continuing to that best practices, we have build security in every layer. That means if you are using application layer and uh, web layer and database layer, everywhere you have to use I would say web tier, application tier, or database tier, any tier if you are using. So all the tier you have to build your security so that it will be um, uh, that means error free or hacking free, so that it will be always up and running. And think parallel, that means what if scenario kind of thing. For example, if you want to go with EC2 instances with application load balancer, then RDS. Okay, you also can parallelly think like uh, serverless architecture, like API gateway plus along with API gateway, you can use with the Lambda plus DynamoDB kind of parallel architecture, so that you are able to save cost as well as significant time also. It based on the application requirement, business requirement, you can choose in parallel things. And loose coupling sets you free. What does that mean? Okay, so when you're designing the application, you may have several components you are using, right? So you have to ensure that all the components, all the interdependent. That means your application supposed to be loose couple. Loose couple means you should not depending on any of the AWS services to use that services. That means if sometimes one of the AWS service is not available, it's always available, but in case if it is not available, then your application suffers on the failure. So you have to ensure that your application is not depending on any other particular service, so that it will be always reduce the interdependencies. And if any change or failure in one component does not impact other components. So this about best practices. And if you have any questions on this presentation, please feel free to ask me. I will explain.
Hey Satya, this is Anand. The question is, when you talked about Elastic Cache, there are two flavors, Memcache and Redis. If I'm really, my worry is more performance. Is Memcache still better than Redis?
Somehow I have distracted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll repeat. Yeah, between there are two options for the Elastic Cache.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned the Memcache and Redis.
Yeah.
So if I'm my worry is performance, and I want to store something and then it should be very high performance, should I go with Memcache?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, in the table I explained, if you want to go with the performance perspective, you can use this one. But if you want to go for a failover kind of thing, then you have to go with Redis. Other than that, if you don't want to any backup service or anything else, you can use Memcache.
Okay, yeah. I can easily recover the data myself. So in that scenario,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just balance out which one weighs more.
Yeah, right. So mainly your question is related with the latency perspective. So in the case, you can still go with Memcache.
Okay, yeah.
So is it Anand Ramohan?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Satya, I have another question.
Yeah.
On the one of the slide and in the back about horizontal scaling. Yeah. So it's the auto scaling come into picture when I think more aligns with the scaling horizontally, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, you cannot do vertical scaling well if you want to add a couple of servers.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Any questions?
Hi Satya, I am Jay Kumar.
Hi, Jay Kumar.
I have a generic question not related to this week's topic. So whenever you are taking this session, right, you are saying that this topic will you will get like 2 questions, 3 questions, 5 questions. How do you get that information? No, I just wanted to, so that I know that you are telling in each session. But I wanted to figure out myself. Is there any way I can go and refer instead of these videos?
Okay, number of questions. How you will get it depending on person to person. But regardless of who's ever that person, definitely you will get a minimum 1 or 2 questions from this topic. Means so I researched several question bank and articles, and even I was checking with a person who is working in Amazon. So all the combinations. And I have verified that one when I have taken my examination. So all those things.
Okay.
And based on that only, I am posting my questions in our daily questions, right?
Okay. Okay. And another question is like whenever in the daily questions you are posting, right? So is it like you are saying it's from Amazon question bank?
No, I can't say like that. That wording itself, it's a little different. But I said my question bank is in line with Amazon question bank.
Okay, but it's all composed by you, right? That's what you're saying.
Not exactly. So my questions also there, and some references also are there. But my objective is people are supposed to know what kind of question they are going to get in that actual examination, so that I'm preparing them before going to that examination.
Okay, and in the exam, we will get the questions with this flavor, not exactly with these wordings and all, right? Only this flavor kind of questions only will come. That's the expectation, right?
I got several feedback that whatever I am posting the questions, exact question they have received in their examination.
Okay, okay. So that means the wording, everything will repeat the same.
It depends, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, like Satya, most of the times when I go through a question bank, the almost same exact words are we're getting it. But the idea is we have to get the concept so that even if there is a variation, we should be able to answer.
Exactly, exactly. So again, our question is giving some practice to you and reference to you, so that you are able to understand what kind of question you are going to get and how you have to prepare such questions. And honestly, I'm telling you, whatever you are answering the questions on daily basis these days, in the actual exam, that is not that much of complexity like how we are seeing in my questions. So it's less than that complexity. That I can assure you.
Hey Satya, Kannan here. This is my first session. So where do you post these questions? You're talking about Question Bank, right?
Yeah, we are posting in our AWS group so that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that link is available in that WhatsApp, right? Or.
But the group is full at this moment.
Okay. So put me in. Can you put me in waiting list?
Yeah, if anyone will leave the group, then I will add
okay.
there.
Okay. Thanks, Satya.
Yeah. Any questions? Okay, if no questions, thank you for this session.
A quick update, Satya. This is Raj here. I think it's Anand Ramohan, right?